Good morning. Sorry, apologize. If we could gather everybody in to take your seats, we will get started. But thank you all for taking the time to be with us. I'm Julie Murphy. I see a lot of familiar faces from our event that we just conducted. What did you all think? Yeah, so exciting, wasn't it? The shareholders meeting, so excited to see our associates, and think we saw a lot of excitement from some of the announcements we made, and very encouraged. I think they loved the dress code. That was a big hit, right? To bring themselves to work, and then the announcement with education, which is our purpose in being here today. And again, thank you for taking the time as we come together for the conversation. I think it's important. You know, we're very proud of what we've been able to announce and offer to our associates, but internally, and talking about it internally is one thing, and we know and understand that there's an opportunity to really have an external dialogue and to have partnerships that really can impact our program and our process, and we have an obligation to share, I think, what we're doing and learning with others. And based upon some of the feedback that we're already receiving, Zach from Guild, raise your hand and wave, was sharing some great insights from associates on the feedback that we're already seeing on the interest from the program. So I think it's off to a great start, and very encouraged and excited, Rachel, about that. But as we think in terms of the dialogue, it's also important for us to create and develop partnerships. And so I think you'll see that come through in the conversations today with the panel that we moderate. But want to recognize Danette from Lumina Foundation for being here with us. She is one of our external partners that is actually going to do an independent study and research and provide feedback for us on our program so that we can continue to iterate and to improve. And I think that's very important. So thank you for being with us as well. So again, creating training and opportunities for our associates so that we can help them put their front foot forward and start off with a very successful foundation is key in what we're doing today. So I am excited to get the dialogue and the conversation started this morning. So if you would help me recognize and appreciate our moderator for the panel today, our president of the Walmart Foundation, and our chief sustainability officer, Kathleen McLaughlin. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Julie, and good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. You know, there's no question that technology is changing the workforce. So we've probably all been reading endless studies about what does that mean in terms of the nature of jobs, the number of jobs, what kind of jobs, and so on. And they tend to fall on two ends of the spectrum. Sky is falling, technology is taking over the world, or, oh, don't worry, we've had lots of change in the past, but this won't be any different this time. We probably come out somewhere in the middle at Walmart, and if you look at some of the studies, most of them, what they do have in common is they talk about massive change. So it has to do with changing expectations for what jobs are and what's going to be needed to succeed. So I just want to share a few stats that we've been looking at. So, you know, probably many of us have seen the study that came out of the World Economic Forum that 65% of students entering primary school are going to have a job that doesn't even exist today. A third of the people, according to McKinsey, are going to have to develop new skills to perform their jobs. And that's especially true, obviously, for incumbent workers. People who already have gone through the education system, and now they're in work. And, you know, it's going to be quite significant change for them. And that's really a big part of what we're talking about today. We also already know that most people who are in college today are juggling. They are juggling work, they're juggling families. And finally, if you look at the financial situation, almost half of students today are on their own financially. And 25% have dependents. So again, you know, we've read a lot recently about student debt, what happens when people accumulate debt before they even get started on their work lives. So, you know, looking at that, there are some pretty significant implications for what that means around work and the nature of work, but also lifelong learning, the need for workers to be acquiring skills on a continuous, ongoing basis to prepare themselves for the next job, and in many cases, even to do the current job. So at Walmart, we started thinking about all of this a few years ago, actually. And for us, the impetus initially was just competition, right? The world is changing. We're going through a significant transformation of our company into an omni-channel retailer. We're using technology in so many ways to serve the customer, to run our stores. Expectations that customers have never been higher of the kind of service that they're going to get in stores. So we started to think about our own associates and what we could do to invest in our people to help them get off to a good start in retail, a good start in their jobs, to provide them better stability to succeed in their jobs, and to help them accelerate their mobility. So stability and mobility. In the last few years, if you've watched us, you've seen us bring about a number of changes to compensation, to scheduling practices, to tools and technology, to education, pathways, academies. We'll talk about some of that today. All in the service of helping equip our associates to thrive as they start with us and to help them move up more quickly, whether that's at Walmart or wherever life may take them. So today's announcement is really about taking that to the next step. How can we go even further in helping people equip themselves with the skills they need to succeed? But this is a much bigger deal. This is obviously way beyond Walmart. This is the retail and service sector as a whole, and really it's about our economy as a whole. So as we've been working within Walmart, the company, we've also been working through the Walmart Foundation with many, many others across the ecosystem, other retailers, education providers, nonprofits, governments at various levels, to try to rewire the ecosystem of workforce development to make it the norm that people can acquire skills on the job, that incumbent workers, especially people in the service sector, can start out and start to build the skills on the job in a way that's attainable, accessible, relevant, and help them succeed. So we have a big program in the Walmart Foundation called our Retail Opportunity Program that we launched in early 2015, the same time that Walmart, the company, was announcing and launching its own efforts around associate education. So today we're really excited to have a discussion about how can we go faster to prepare the broader workforce, not just Walmart, but the workforce in the retail sector or service sector writ large for jobs of today and jobs of tomorrow. How do we help employers and other education providers make that education relevant for work, relevant for performance in many different ways, soft skills, technical skills, and so on. So we'll get into that. So I'm really excited to have several national experts with us today to broaden that conversation. I'd like to introduce them and bring them up now to start that conversation. So let me begin with Rachel Carlson. Rachel is the CEO and co-founder of Guild Education. Rachel, come on up. She co-founded Guild in 2015. Now, Guild is a rapidly growing B Corp that helps employers offer education as a benefit. So adult workers, education as a benefit, particularly frontline employees. Their mission is to help people, quote, go back to school, but provide them not only the relevant, access to relevant courses, but coaching, guidance around the financial aspects of this. How do I stick with the program? How do I drive to completion? Because that's really the goal, is to help people not only enroll, but get to completion. And so they've partnered with many, many educational institutions around degree programs that they've curated, and then they work with those institutions and with employers to help make that match. And that's what they've been doing with Walmart. So really excited to have you here with us, Rachel. Before she founded Guild, she was the CEO of Student Blueprint. And before that, she served in the Obama White House. She's also, I'd like to point out, the leader of one of only 17% of VC-backed startups that's led by a woman. And she yes, 3/4 of her leadership team are female. So, women-owned business. Really excited to work with you on that basis too, Rachel. And she was selected by the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce as the top women-owned business of the year last year. So congratulations, Rachel.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Also very pleased to introduce from Walmart, Mr. Drew Holler. Drew is the Vice President of Associate Experience and a great colleague. He has been an innovative people leader really at the lead of what we call HR modernization for the US division of Walmart here. He started 17 years ago with Walmart in logistics.
Yeah.
And began as a management trainee, worked his way up. A great example, actually, of what we're talking about in terms of opportunity. And after moving up through the ranks in supply chain, he spent a fair amount of time leading a team that was working on innovative retail strategies in a bunch of different disciplines. So e-commerce, omni-channel, store operations, and now he's doing his current role on HR modernization. And this effort has been a big piece of that. So welcome, Drew.
Thank you.
Dr. Danette Howard, Julie mentioned her a couple minutes ago. She is the Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer at the Lumina Foundation. So the Lumina Foundation is the nation's largest private foundation that is focused solely on this question of student access and success in post-secondary education, particular focus then on incumbent adult workers. So she oversees several of the strategies that are around how do we help people get high quality degrees that are relevant for their lives, for advancement, and how can we give them credentials that are recognized and have a currency in the market among employers. And she's done a fair amount of work around state and federal policy to enable that shift in the ecosystem. And that's a really important factor that perhaps we'll get into in the discussion. She is highly regarded nationally as an analyst and a thought leader in this space. And she previously served as Director of Research and Policy Analysis at the Maryland Higher Education Commission. So welcome, Dr. Howard. Thank you. Last, but certainly not least, we welcome from the California Community College System. This is the largest and most complex educational institution in the nation. They have 114 community colleges in California, and she works across all of them. Ton-Quinlivan. Welcome, Vaughn. She's the Executive Vice Chancellor for Workforce and Digital Futures. So that means she works on the strategies around the workforce mission of the college system, and also the technology and data portfolio. And obviously those things go hand in hand. They're critical reinforcing ingredients. She oversees a budget of almost $1 billion across the system, annual federal and state funding toward the policy and programs in those areas. She joined the system in 2011. At that time, she was Vice Chancellor of Workforce and Economic Development. And she also happens to be the Vice Chair at the National Skills Coalition. And she serves on the California Council on Science and Technology. So welcome, Vaughn, and please, let's give them a round of applause to welcome them. So would love to start the conversation just painting a picture of the current landscape. What is the need? If you could characterize today, you look out across the country at incumbent workers, people who are in the workforce, how would you characterize the need in terms of skills that are required, skills that people have, and why is this an important issue for society? And maybe, Danette, we can start with you.
Sure. So we do a lot of work with an organization, the Georgetown Center for Education in the Workforce. And some of the data that they provided us showed that 60% of the jobs that will be available in the year 2020 will require some form of post-secondary education and training. That is some form of learning beyond a high school diploma. That led the Lumina Foundation to come up with what we call Goal 2025, and that guides all of our work. That is to help 60% of Americans earn high-quality post-secondary credentials. We don't want every American to have a bachelor's degree. We don't think that every American needs a bachelor's degree, but we do think that in order to have the talent needed to drive our economy, that many more individuals will need some form of post-secondary education and training. That's also supported by data that we've seen since the recession that shows that 11.6 million new jobs were created after the recession, and 11.5 million of those new jobs went to people who had some form of post-secondary education and training, right? So this is all very consistent. And so therefore, the landscape needs to have talent that then has those high-quality post-secondary credentials, whether that's a certification, whether that's a certificate, an associate's degree, and a bachelor's degree. And that's right in line with the education announcement that Walmart made today. And I just want to say, given that everything that Lumina does is about working with colleges and universities and employers to develop the talent that the nation needs, that the announcement that you made today is a very big deal. And so I'm not paid to be here. I just want to give you a pat on the back because it's a very smartly designed program. And I think it's going to be a game changer, not just for Walmart's employees, but I think that it shows that you're stepping up as a leader in the field. And I think that it's going to be able to maybe have other employers step up to the plate too.
Yeah, well, that's a hope. Drew, can you describe, from the point of Walmart, what are we seeing? What's the need here?
Yeah, for us, you think of education, and those of you that have maybe covered us for a while, Pathways is one of those things that we have today for our new associates when they come in. So in the first 90 days, they go through some training. And at the end of that 90 days, they go through almost a little tiny graduation. And what we saw from that when we first started it is the confidence that gave our associates. Not only confidence in the work, but their confidence in who they were, and it actually meant something, even something small like that. Then you look at academies was kind of our next one, where we did in-person training. In some cases, they are weeks worth of training. It's very intense and involved. And at the end of that training, we have a moment of celebration and a graduation for them as well. And what we saw in that case is that they came back from academies, they were more engaged, they had better customer service, they had this sense of confidence in themselves. And as we started to think about what's the next evolution for us, with the associate in mind, is what could we do for them that's going to take it to the next level? That's where this formal education came in. And we heard it from them. If you look across, you guys are the experts on the industry and the sector, but we think the education industry is ripe for some sort of disruption. We think there's an epidemic in the U.S. with student loan debt, and we think we have an opportunity to help our associates with it. So we have 1 million associates. They all, in the top of their mind, have this idea of they'd love to get an education. They just don't know how and how they're going to afford it. And so we thought it was just a great opportunity to step in and to kind of extend the pathways, academies, and this is kind of the next evolution of that. And we see a ton of business value that we think I can touch on later, but tons of business value as well as we enter this. But it really just came from their voices, their minds, what was on their hearts, and what they're concerned about. So we were hoping to fill that gap for them.
Yeah. Rachel, is that what you're hearing from other companies, or just paint a picture for us of what you're seeing out there as you work with other retailers and people in the education system?
Sure. So to build on some of the data that Danette shared, so we know there's 64 million Americans in the U.S. today working who don't yet have the degree or credential they need to have a secure economic future with a job of tomorrow. And when we look at that group, nearly half of them work for the Fortune 1000 in the US. And many of them are trying to figure out how to achieve their goals and their degrees. And 31 million of that 64 million have tried college, but not yet earned that degree. And often when we share that statistic, people assume it might have something to do with academic aptitude. Well, it turns out that's not the case. People didn't drop out of college because they couldn't complete the classes, or they didn't stop in a credential program because they didn't have the skills. It's normally two costs. It's the financial cost and the opportunity cost of being a working adult and figuring out how to balance that work-life balance, the family balance, and then school. And so what we're finding in our partnerships with many employers in the service sector, the fast casual sector, the retail sector, is that when we can work with companies like Walmart to bring down the financial cost, and then work with great universities who offer online flexible programs to bring down the opportunity cost, we can help unlock the potential of that 64 million American population that's figuring out how do they prepare themselves from a skills perspective for jobs for tomorrow, both at their companies and then with enlightened companies like Walmart, thinking even beyond that as they develop skills for the economy writ large.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Vaughn, what are you seeing in the California system? What's the need that is out there?
Well, I want to, oh my goodness, that's loud. I want to echo a lot of points made by my fellow panelists here. I used to be in the private sector and headed up workforce development for a company of 20,000 men and women before coming into this role. And so, Danette had said that the new gateway into the world of work is really a post-secondary credential. No longer that you can just come straight out of high school and be able to be sure that you can make a good living and put food on the table for the family. But the other reality that we have to acknowledge is that the shelf life of skills has gotten shorter and shorter with more technology and automation being introduced into the world of work, right? And so that reality, when you interpret it, means that you can't just go to education and training once, but you actually have to come back for booster shots throughout your life. And so the set of public and private partnerships and employer partnerships that have to come into play in order to co-invest in talent is really important. And so congratulations to Walmart, because your program is actually an exemplar of a co-investment strategy, because throughout a person's lifetime, it will be the public sector, government supporting you through education, but there will also be a need for the individual to co-invest, as well as the employer to co-invest at different points of time. And if we're all investing in making sure that there's a talent pool, then we can ensure that our communities are much more economically resilient, especially as the workplace changes.
Yeah, that's critical. And at Walmart, we like to talk a lot about shared value, is our term for it, or widely used term, which is investing in education for associates is good for business, as well as good for the associate, as well as good for society. So there's value that's created that's shared among all of those parties. So Drew, with that, maybe we can come back to you. And could you describe a little bit about what is the business case for doing this? And then can you talk about what is the program? What did you design?
Yeah.
How is it different?
Yeah, sure. So the business case to us is pretty straightforward. We talk a lot about, at Walmart, you probably heard us say, and on the bottom of our badges for our store associates, it says our associates make the difference. And we really believe that to be the case. So we think our associates in their stores are our competitive advantage. And the more engaged they are, the more confident they are in who they are, the better our customer service is going to be, and the better the business is going to be. And so for us, this was a way to just bring that to the next level. And what we're finding is, and what's interesting as we start sharing this, is there's probably a subset of associates that are going to take advantage of this. And they're going to be more engaged. We find this in the data. They're going to have better retention. They're going to be better in customer service, more productive. But there's also a lot of associates that may not take advantage of it. But we do think there's a halo effect of this as well, that they're proud to work for Walmart. They're proud to work for an employer that's willing to do this, even if they don't take advantage of it. We've seen this in countless other things that we've done. And so though it's a small subset at the end of the day that may take advantage of the benefit, we think there's a major benefit in total. The other one is just the amount of, the type of applicants that we get. We found, Rachel can probably comment on this more, but a lot of employers that have done this have seen an uptick in their application flow. And so we think we're going to get a pretty good run on the type of applicants we get, the type of people that apply. And at the end of the day, it's going to increase our associate base. So anyways, I think it's those core things that we think is going to see benefits. As far as the program, what's different, we think we have something special here. What I think is different is we're giving credit for the work that our associates do each and every day. We think that's somewhat rare. The skills that they pick up through our training and just through everyday life in our stores gives them, in our distribution centers, gives them unique opportunity that they should get credit for. And so giving college credit for those experiences we think is rare.
So right off the bat, if I'm an associate and I've gone through Academy, for example, I'm going to have a transcript that's going to already show credits,
Yes.
right? Before I even enroll.
Yeah, so up to around 20 credits is probably the maximum, depending on the type of training that they go through. Which you think about, that's amazing, that they can walk away after some corporate training with 20 college credits. And so we think that's unusual. The other thing that's unusual is the ability to do open access for some of these programs, where a lot of our associates may not have had the opportunity in formal education in the past, and may struggle getting into some of the universities. What we've tried to do is choose the universities that have the best outcomes for adult learners, and so we've really tailored it to them as an individual. So we've looked at our associate base and say, what do they need? And those were the programs that we found. And so we think we have a great opportunity to give them access that they probably wouldn't have. And then the other one obviously is affordability. We have the ability to present this for $1 a day. We wanted them to have some kind of commitment in this, but we're going to cover the rest of the costs. And that's probably the biggest barrier for many of our associates is, all right, we can give you college credit, but they may not have the resources to actually finish it. And we wanted to close that gap for them. So we think that's kind of the program. We do think it's special. And we've tailored it around our associate and not necessarily other things.
Yeah, great. So we'll come back to some of those design elements, and unpack them a little bit, because there were a lot of discussions about those, I know, and where we landed on those. Rachel, if I can just turn to you, in terms of the business case, what have you seen? Because you've been working with some other folks for a while. Yeah. Who've done different programs, but along the same lines. Are you seeing those kind of benefits? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, we are, and we've been amazed by the outcomes and have followed in the stead of Lumina, who has set a great framework for how to measure the return on investment that companies and universities see when these partnerships come together. So on the business side, to start to the attraction component, we've seen that companies that roll out a program like this see that anywhere between 15 and 20% of their applicants start to indicate that this program was the #1 reason why they applied for the job. And we're excited to see that with Walmart as well. What flows from that is for the existing incumbent workforce as well as these new folks coming in. We found with a number of our employer partners in the retail and fast casual and service sector that an employee who takes a class through a program like this is 2x as likely to retain over the course of the year as their peer in the same environment who doesn't take a class. So that's been incredible, and universities obviously benefit from that as well. And then the final one is that for companies who endorse these sort of programs, we've seen a 2.4x impact on promotion rates. So an employee who takes a class and both communicates that with their manager, shows that they're committed to investing in themselves and balancing school and work, has seen this great increase in promotion when controlling for other factors. So that's been really phenomenal. And to think about the business of higher ed as well, we work with nonprofit universities who in today's world are struggling in a digital marketing landscape to find the students they want to serve. It's getting increasingly expensive for them to meet the Walmart employee who they want to help go back to school. And what they're finding is by partnering with employers and building programs like this, they're able to help reduce tuition costs and bring down the cost of higher ed. So there's this really phenomenal win-win happening between the business sector, the companies we work with, and the universities who are looking to help control the cost of higher ed amidst the debate around student loans and the challenges that the U.S. is seeing right now.
And I would guess even just from a recruiting and marketing point of view for the educational institutions, the student body is there, right? They don't, it's, yeah, interesting. Okay. Danette, when you consider the barriers people face, can you talk a little bit about that? What are the barriers that adult workers are facing, and what are you seeing as some best practices to overcome those?
Yeah. Well, I think we have to just level set in terms of who today's students are. When many people think about college students, they still have this perception in their mind that they are typically 18 to 24 years old, coming right out of high school, being supported by mom and dad, and getting through a 4-year college degree in 4 years. And that actually is typically not the norm. 58% of college students are working while in college, and not working 10 hours a week on campus, but working a full-time job or sometimes 2 jobs just to make ends meet. 38% of students are 25 years old or older. Many students have dependents of their own, meaning that they're parents. Many students are commuting to campus. Many students are attending community college. Most students haven't saved a single dollar to put toward their post-secondary education. So when you talk about affordability being a barrier, it is a significant barrier. And so these are all the things that today's students are contending with as they are trying to get that credential that they know is going to make a difference in their lives. So in most cases, the case doesn't need to be made for why the credential is necessary. They just have to figure out a way of how to actually get the credential. So what are some ways that we can eradicate those barriers so that the pathway becomes clear? One of the things is, as Walmart is doing, take away the affordability obstacle. I think that it's important that students have to contribute to the investment so that, as with anything, they can, as was said this morning, have some skin in the game so that they can also see the value in it, but not make their investment so significant that it does create an obstacle. Secondly, you talked about this, Drew, giving them credit for their own experience, either in the academy or for competencies that they have gained while on the job. At Lumina, we say competencies should be the currency that lead to a credential. Not how much seat time you've spent in a classroom, but what you can show, what you can demonstrate. If you can demonstrate mastery over a particular subject matter and you've gained that mastery through your on-the-job experience, then you should get credit toward a credential. And so I love that Walmart is actually going to give your associates and employees credit based upon experiences that they've had at work or in the academies. That is certainly going to help to eradicate some of those barriers. And the fact that many of your employees have already come to the table with previous college experience, given that over 30 million Americans, as you said, Rachel, have some college but no credential, being able to bundle those previous college experience together and apply them toward the degree is also going to go a long way toward eradicating those barriers.
Yep, and those two design things were big considerations, Drew, right? So can you talk a little bit about the financial one, right? So why did you end up saying, okay, it's $1 a day and not just free?
You know, the exact same reason that was said. Our goal was to, how we're going to measure ourselves is the completion, not the enrollment. So we want to know how many of our associates actually go through the finish line and receive the degree. It's not about how many numbers we can get to enroll. And so if you think about that, how do you incentivize and how do you drive that behavior? It's the commitment side of it. And so we want people that are serious, that want to go through this, that want to put a little bit of skin in the game. But it's not really a financial relief for the company. That's not the intent. The intent really was to get as many people across that finish line as possible so that they can walk through, they can get the certificate, and they can feel like they've accomplished something. Because that, I think, is what really gives the confidence.
Well, what I thought was interesting, too, about the $1 a day is it's an investment, but it's not a huge upfront barrier.
Exactly.
Right, it's over time. And so I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to invest in it. When I'm done, I can be proud that I contributed and I was part of this, but it wasn't a barrier.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, Vaughn, we're talking about massive transformation of educational institutions, too. You alluded to that a bit in your opening comments. Can you talk a bit about what does this transformation look like for the California system?
Sure. With 114 colleges, as you can imagine, shape-shifting a system that big is significant. But I'd like to just highlight a few more best practices that we're working to incorporate as well. So, one best practice, another best practice in the Walmart program is what Rachel's company is providing, which is a success coach. Because navigating education, especially if you're not confident the first time that you experience higher education, is a real dilemma for many adults. And so having someone who can navigate you through how to have a personalized study plan, connect you with a community of care that's going to address needs even beyond your education needs, and then just help you answer questions that may arise throughout your journey. These are important elements of helping adults succeed. And then in partnership with competency-based education, is this concept of prior learning assessment that Drew talked about. And for adults, it's really important that adults don't start from scratch. As you can imagine, if somebody has gone through a lot of the internal training and on-the-job training of Walmart, and they want to pursue, let's say, an associate's degree in retail management, they probably have a lot of experience that can translate into credit, and they could accelerate and move faster through that program than somebody who hasn't had that experience. So this concept of being able to earn credit is really important, and I just want to share a few statistics from the Center for Adult Experiential Learning, KL. So if adults get some prior learning credits, they're 2.5 times more likely to graduate than if they started from scratch. And for many education institutions, higher education, there's also a misconception that if someone's coming in with a lot of credits, then that would actually eat into the way that the colleges are financed today. And what the study has found is that adults actually earn 30 more credits because they actually make it through to completion. So these are some of the myths that we have to debunk as we're shape-shifting institutions, higher education institutions, to better serve adults over sort of this booster shot journey that they have to take as they adjust to the future world of work.
Yeah, that was something we thought a lot about, right, Drew? And some people have said, well, wait a minute, is that real? Like, how can you say that you got college credit because you did an academy program or you worked for 10 years? And it's very real. Do you want to talk a little bit about the rigor of the equivalence process? And maybe this is for Rachel and Drew together. Like, how does that work? And how would you explain to someone, why should we feel good that, yeah, you know what, that is worth a credit in retail management or whatever the course is?
Yeah, I can just, talk about the essence of it, and then Rachel can talk about, we really partner with Guild for this reason, to help us through this. But we think we actually provide unbelievable opportunities for our associates. Those of you that probably heard the meeting that we had as shareholders, where that Ed, who's a store manager, 6 years, he was an immigrant to the U.S. He spent 6 years with us, started as a dairy stocker, is now a store manager. That opportunity that we provide is really hard to match. And so we know there's value there. And we see people that take on new responsibilities all the time in our million plus associate base. And so we felt like, hey, there has to be something to this to be able to give them credit for that externally. Because we really value the work that we do. And we think we provide opportunities that very few people can provide. And so with that in mind, it kind of started us down this path. And I think Guild has really helped us formalize that and understand how we go about it the most. The goal is for us to provide in our preferred universities. One of the reasons we chose them is we chose them based on a lot of different factors, but one of the factors was how many college credits were they willing to give us for the work that we do, because we think that is incredibly valuable. But Rachel, you can talk us through it.
Sure. So philosophically, the concept of credit for training is one that folks are familiar with, but by another term. So advanced placement credit, or AP credit, most high schoolers today have the opportunity to earn credits for classes they take in high school to help them move into college. And the data is similar to the data that Vaughn shared about helping that instigate college success. But it's often that folks forget to pause and say, okay, well, if you can earn credits for your U.S. history high school class and march those into college, why shouldn't a Walmart leader who's been perfecting the skills of people management, process management, supply chain logistics over a period of their career have the same opportunity to earn credits the way a high schooler might? And so with that philosophy in mind, the most innovative universities in the country are thinking in a very forward way about this, but they can't do it alone. And when they try, it's quite burdensome. So prior learning assessment normally requires that the student build a portfolio, show up at the college, advocate for themselves, and hopefully get a few credits. And so with scalable partners like Walmart, what we've been able to do is work with groups of universities to look at the training that Walmart has put together and has already offered to hundreds of thousands of Americans, and with one formula process that lets the universities look at this and lets their faculty review the incredible training. And it really is incredible. I had an opportunity to go through the Academy's training. It's really fantastic. When they can do that, we suddenly have, again, lowered the cost dramatically rather than having the university have to work with every single student to review that portfolio. So by doing it this way, again, it's really bringing together what employers are doing well, which is training people in process management, project management, people management, which are three of the demand skills of the future, and helping universities recognize those skills. And I think the most thoughtful, humble universities are saying sometimes employers do this better than us because they can do it on the job and they can have the apprenticeship component of learning that skill. So it's a really nice marriage.
Yeah, please.
We work with a lot of administrators at colleges and universities who talk a lot about college-ready students. Are students ready to hit the ground running when they come to our campuses? But we like to turn that idea on its head and say, are colleges actually ready for students? Are there student-ready colleges? And we think that student-ready colleges are those that are willing to consider training for credit, are willing to consider whether Walmart associates who have gone through the academies and who have developed a level of mastery or expertise, who should be able to show that they should be able to come in the door with credit on their transcript, should be able to apply that learning for credit. That's what a student-ready college is, and we should begin to elevate those and lift them up as the most innovative in the country.
Yeah, and that's really where this broader space of workforce development is going, right? So it's a world where we're clear about the competencies or the skills needed for different jobs, and we're able to focus the development on acquiring those competencies and aligning the credentials to those. So that, to your point, Danette, what you said earlier, what we're looking for and rewarding is, does Drew have this skill that I need or not? It's not, does he have this piece of paper? The piece of paper, we want to align it so that becomes a marker for the skill and not, the other way around. And that's another thing that I think is really exciting about the curriculum is how much time you've spent tailoring it to be relevant for leadership roles in the retail and service sector, supply chain management, retail, business management, and so on. And it's not just vocational or technical skills. These are soft skills, critical thinking, as you talked about, people leadership and so on. So it's a broad suite of skills that someone needs to rise to, higher levels of responsibility.
Yeah, one thing, just to comment on that. So this is just the launch of this program. There's three degrees that we're offering from 3 different universities, but 3 areas of study. So an associate's degree, a BA in business, and a supply chain degree. We're going to be looking at adding more as we go and continue to go down that path. One of the things that's interesting, and I forgot to mention this, is that we've partnered with the universities to put context in those degrees for Walmart. So imagine an associate that's going through a finance class. They'll be looking at potentially learning about the Walmart P&L in that class. Or they may be looking at a marketing plan from Walmart. And so not only is it relevant as a whole for them to extend out if they were to leave Walmart, but it's also giving them an insight into the company as well. And so we've put a lot of context, or working with the university, put a lot of context in the courses that's relevant to Walmart. And so we think of business value as well. There's more business value there, but it's also easier for the associate to learn if they're familiar with it. And so if I'm studying finance again and I'm looking at the Walmart P&L, I'm more familiar with that, and so my knowledge, it's easier for me to learn those skills. And so we think that's different as well.
Yeah, that notion of contextualized learning, it's something we also found in the Walmart Foundation. One of the grants we made was to Miami-Dade and the National Immigration Forum to create an English as a second language course that was tailored for a retail setting. So the students were learning ESL, English as a second language, in a retail context. And what we found through the cohorts that they ran through the pilot is faster promotions and better retention, as well as quicker acquisition of the English language. It makes sense, right? People are learning the language that they actually need to use every day to succeed in their job. Therefore, they succeed in their job. Therefore, they stick with the program. Therefore, they learn the English. So there's a lot of synergy in that. So I want to come back on to the question I asked you a minute ago about transformation of institutions, because this way of thinking, it's significantly different for everybody. It's different for the adult worker, it's different for the employer, it's different for the education provider, whether it's the community college system, 4-year institutions, and then there's a whole panoply of others. Tech startups, you think of folks like edX or Coursera or Udacity, Opportunity at Work, National Skills Coalition, workforce boards, right? So many parties that are participating in this broader ecosystem of workforce development. If we're shifting from a system of, okay, I go to school, then I have my job, and off I go, to one of lifelong learning where the employer is investing in training and development, workforce boards are working with incumbent workers as well as job seekers. You've got educational institutions, how did you put it, Danette, transforming to kind of teach the skills.
Student-ready colleges.
Student-ready colleges. That is massive change. So can you talk a little bit, how are you thinking about that in California?
So but you mentioned a topic that I think is really important, and I'll use it as an example of how do you introduce change into big system from a public policy.
Yeah.
Right? You talked about soft skills. It doesn't matter what advisory board you sit with, whether it's associate's level degree or bachelor degree or any type of certificate. Employers will complain about soft skills. So let me just mention what some of them are, like self-awareness, empathy, being able to work with diverse populations, adaptability, solution mindset. So these are some of the skills that are highly valued by employers, and frankly, they future-proof individuals, especially as technical skills change over time. So one of the things that we've done and experimented with under a framework called Doing What Matters for Jobs and the Economy was actually to move away from single college experiments to actually mobilizing our scale. So we asked 10 colleges, but once of all, to work on this addressing of the soft skills. And to their credit, they developed a program called the New World of Work 21st Century Skills, which identified these top 10 skills that employers wanted. And what was so amazing, when we met with Apple Retail, they had not been interested in recruiting from the community colleges previously. But they pointed to those 10 skills and they said, this is exactly what we hired for. And they began a relationship where they had 8 Apple Retail stores, partnered with 8 community colleges, where students went through the retail management certificate, and with these 10 skills in mind, did a capstone set of activities with Apple, and then they were provided a private URL in order to apply for positions. And one of the other experiments that we embedded was we asked them to badge. We asked the colleges to badge these skills when they were evidenced by the employer. And so now individuals can actually display those on their LinkedIn and carry those badges as a way to represent, their own currency, right, what their skills portfolio. And now that we've been able to take that from 10 colleges to 35 colleges, and our innovation curve and adoption curve is one of 10 colleges to 30 colleges to 70 colleges to 114 colleges. And so we're driving, we're injecting new practices into the system as a way to incorporate a lot of the concepts that have been discussed here in terms of portability, in terms of making your skills be evident, and how do you get the employers to represent these skills with educators.
It's a great example. So Danette, Lumina, was mentioned earlier, is going to be studying this and looking at what works, what doesn't work, providing suggestions not just for Walmart, but for the field about how to do more of this. Do you have hypotheses? What will you be looking for as markers of success?
Yes. Yes, we do, actually. So we've done this previously with several other companies, but of course, nothing on this scale. And we've also never started with a company from the inception of a program. So it's very exciting for us. Some of the things that we'll be looking for is whether or not there are differences depending upon the level of an associate. So with frontline workers, say, versus managers. We'll be interested in whether or not there are differences, let's say, by region. We will also be very interested in whether or not some of the outcomes that we've seen with other companies also hold true with Walmart. So we saw that when an employer invested in the educational benefits that accrued to an individual, there were also significant benefits that came back to the employer, such as some of the things that Rachel mentioned. An employee was likely to be retained longer, to be promoted. There were also lateral changes, so they may not have been promoted, but they might change positions within the same company. We also saw that there were fewer unexcused absences. The employee was more likely to be engaged and just to be happy at work, right? We all want people who enjoy being there, who then become ambassadors for the organization. We also are interested in seeing whether or not, if there are just, Kathleen, you said this earlier, if there are 10 individuals or 12 individuals within a supercenter who participate in the program, what does that do for the culture of the organization? Thank you. I hypothesize that if there are just a few individuals within a center, that is going to have a very positive impact on the overall culture of the organization. So those are some of the things that we're going to be looking for. While I believe this is a very smartly designed program, we're also going to be open to and are pleased that you're open to making some changes and tweaks along the way. So there are some things that we don't know until we know. And so there's going to be need for kind of rapid kind of change and correction. And so very open to that too. But I think that the field will be also eager to learn, and I'm pleased that you're willing to open up the study to others.
Yeah, one of the things we've been working on, at Walmart as part of our transformation is agile approaches to whether it's new product development or new systems or new processes, and this is very much one of those where, okay, you get it out there,
correction.
and we'll learn and see as we go.
That's right.
Drew, how is your paper going to get graded on this? What are you hoping for?
My boss is over
She's
here.
right
so
there. Comment on this.
Again, I think we go back to we're going to measure ourselves on completion rate and not just enrollment. I think a lot of times when folks maybe talk about programs, they talk about how many people are enrolled. We want to really focus on how do we provide the best possible experience and get people across the finish line. So that'll be one thing we're going to look at. We're going to really look at, we're really interested in the applicant flow. So that's something that we're going to take a close eye on. Until we can get the very best possible talent. We do want to be the employer of choice. It's one of our goals. And we think this adds to that menu for potential Walmart associates. And so we'll be looking at that. And then I think a big part that we'll always look at is what's the engagement and productivity that we see from the associates that are enrolled in this through retention and just how they perform. And whether that's promotions or just how they perform their everyday job, we'll be looking for that as well. So there's a lot of little things that we'll be measuring through the program. Right now, we're really focused on making it the most valuable program we possibly can for both the associate and for Walmart. And we work in an agile way. It's part of our program. Ellie, who sits over here, is our product owner. This is part of her many things that she does. And her team will be focused on the next probably year or so, just maximizing. She deserves a lot of credit for this program. But she and her team will be really focused on how do we maximize those outcomes, and we'll be looking at making adjustments as we go. We've been very clear with even the universities that we're working with that we're looking for things to improve from here. This is just a starting point, and so we're being very open to those changes.
That's great. That's fantastic. I love that you're so laser focused on completion. And I said that I think that other employers are going to learn from Walmart. I actually hope that colleges and universities will also learn from Walmart. We want more post-secondary institutions to be focused on completion too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you.
Rachel, can you talk a little bit about the role that Guild will play in all of this, and what are you hoping to see? What are your hypotheses?
Sure. So the hard work begins for us today, and the exciting work, and that's the work of helping the Walmart associate find the right program. So one of our favorite things about this program was that Walmart was so deliberate in building choices for all employees. You'll find that many policies like this at other companies offer one degree, one program, one school. And so Walmart's choice to offer everything in the associate's and bachelor's degree option set, as well as continuing their high school completion program, means there really are options for any learner. And so that means our job when our coaches, and we have a large team of coaches who will be working with every Walmart associate who wants to go through this program, when they get together on video chat or on phone to talk about their opportunities here, they'll be helping the student figure out what is the right program for them. What are their career goals? What are their family commitments? What are their work schedules like? As I talked about opportunity cost, our job is to help eliminate that. Most colleges offer all their classes between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. And last time I checked, I think every Walmart store is open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So helping to work with the universities to build flexible programs, evening classes, weekends, competency-based, and help every student find a program that's going to fit their life, their family commitment, their work responsibilities, and their career goals. And then we'll be working with every student as they move through the program. What that means, we call it dual retention and success coaching. So our job is to ensure that they succeed in school and they succeed in work. And so that's a unique role we can play because we sit at the intersection of the employer and the university. So we're weekly talking to students about how are you planning for next semester's classes? What does your work schedule look like? High volume time at work is coming up, like the holidays. How are we thinking about that? How are we planning for studying for finals? You name it. And so we believe, as far as we know, we're the first organization that's been able to bring the data from the employer. Walmart helps us understand career pathways, scheduling, et cetera. Data from the university, which they feed back to us about how students are doing in classes and their programs, and bring that together to change these outcomes for this group of folks who really want to achieve their completion degree.
Yeah, those are all such important and very practical, considerations. One thing we haven't talked much about is rural, urban, suburban. You look at a Walmart footprint, our network of stores, we're all over the country. We have a lot of stores that are in some of those more suburban or rural areas. So it will be really interesting to see as folks enroll. There may be people who live in places where it actually wouldn't be easy to them go to a different university. So that'll be an interesting point of access too. Yeah, Vaughn.
So your point on urban and rural and suburban, I recently had an 18-city tour to talk about the future of work, and there were meetups organized. And I think there's a level of angst across all of our communities about what is happening in the workplace 5 to 10 years from now as more artificial intelligence and automation and platforms really just change the nature of work. And how do people keep up, and how do employers keep up as well? So it's a dilemma for the employers as well as for the workers. So the more that we can inoculate our communities, we will find that the angst will go down, and that we can choose the future that we want. And this future is not going to be one where any one entity, is not the employers alone that's going to solve it. It's not the education alone that's going to solve it, or government. It's going to have to be a public-public, a public-private, the private-private, with community-based organizations. Yeah. All of us are going to have to step in and looking at our regional economies and really thinking through what do we bring together so that the region can prosper and that our communities can be resilient in the future skills.
Well said. We're talking about an ecosystem.
Right.
And all of it has to evolve for this to continue to work for folks. So thank you. Well, with that, let me open it up for questions from the audience. Yeah, we'll start here. We've got a mic roving around here.
Hello, everyone. This is Sarah Nassauer from the Wall Street Journal. 2 quick questions, maybe for Drew. You said that a big part of why you wanted to do this was to get more associate applications and retention. Could you just describe a bit what's the nature of the labor market right now that Walmart is dealing with? What's happening in stores? And then the second question, my very Wall Street Journal question, is how much does this cost you?
I'll answer the first one. I think unemployment, as we all know, is very low. I will tell you that how we attract associate differs from store to store, town to town, city to city. So it's hard for me to give a general statement. But I do think that we've made some huge strides in becoming an employer that people are looking towards for careers and for just jobs. We've done that as we increased our minimum our wage rate and our starting wage rate with some of the benefits that we provided associates at the beginning of the year. And this is just another one of those things that we think kind of goes into our menu to potential associates. So, the labor market is tight, but we do think in most markets we're very competitive, and that we provide opportunity that very few people can have. I talked about Ed, who's the store manager that we highlighted today. Goes from a dairy stocker to a store manager in 6 years, immigrant into the country, and he's making 6 figures now. And that's unbelievable opportunity and what we can provide them. And now we can formalize that with this program. So, I think we offer pretty good opportunity for individuals. From a cost perspective, like we've been saying, this is very, it's going to differ from associate to associate based on what they're bringing to the table. So we had a conversation earlier that a lot of our associates already have college credit, and so that is a factor in. Which program they choose is a factor. A lot of those things. So it's hard for us to just nail down a cost for you guys, but we do know that any cost that we incur in this year is going to be a significant ROI for us.
Yep. In the front here. Trish, you want to, we'll get you the mic here so folks can hear you. Just state your name and who you're with and your question.
Hi, I'm Laurita Tejada. Oh, wow, this is loud. I'm a blogger and influencer on social media at Laurita Tejado from Orlando. My question is, I see that obviously from where I'm sitting or standing, I see that Walmart, and judging by what we saw today at the meeting, which was like a huge pep rally, it seems that obviously there's a lot of diversity and a lot of inclusion on behalf of Walmart. All different types of associates, ages, race, gender, ethnicity, background. But my question is for associates and team members that have different disabilities, whether physical or intellectual, from the educational as well as professional standpoint, people with different disabilities, even just physical disabilities, not necessarily intellectual, we face a lot more hurdles than a lot of people do, whether it's graduating from college, getting the degree, and then the next hurdle of entering the workforce. Does Walmart have initiatives in place to ease that transition and to usher in a bigger era of a stronger era of inclusiveness and inclusion, and how so?
Yeah, so we have a host of initiatives to foster inclusion across any manner of difference. And we if you look at our pipeline from entry level through to leadership, there's a lot that we're proud of, and there's a lot farther we could go. So we envision a world where our workforce as a whole reflects the diversity of the country. Today, we're at about 30% of our officers being women, and 20% of our officers being people of color. That's not where we want it to. We'd love to be 50% women and people of color, but compared to other companies, it's actually very, very positive, and that's true all across our pipeline. So it is absolutely something we focus on, and it's all manner of difference, whether it's women, race, ethnicity, disability, LGBT, transgender, the whole thing. So it's something we've been focused very diligently on for a long time now, and we're not letting up until we kind of get to that world of real inclusion and equity. Specifically as it pertains to the education program and accommodations and so on, can you comment on that?
I can add a little bit. So one thing we haven't talked much about, but most of these programs are online. And what we know from our data is that Americans with physical disabilities are more increasingly opting into online education for reasons like limiting transportation hurdles, limiting the need to have to figure out, how do I get into the school? Is the school ADA compliant? Can I even get into the classroom or the class I want to take? And I think that's one that's really important. With regards to intellectual disabilities, we have a leader at Guild who speaks a lot about his personal battles with dyslexia. And we talk a lot of times with our colleges about how might we help folks take classes at a faster rate in areas where they are moving quickly, and competency-based education is designed exactly for this. And one of Walmart's programs is competency-based, which means that for someone with dyslexia where reading is a slower skill, they could take longer to move through a course like an English course. But if math is their area of strong success, they could move quite quickly through a math class. And so I think this is a lot of the innovation that's happening at the higher ed level, and we're thrilled that the universities that Walmart chose are very thoughtful about both physical and intellectual disabilities.
I don't know, Danette or Vaughn, if you want to add any comments about what you're seeing in this space.
I think that was great, and I also would hope that the coaching would also provide support for that, and that the institutions should also provide support for students, whether it be on the intellectual disabilities side, or if students are actually physically going to the campus, certainly making sure that their needs are met.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yes, here in the second row.
Yes, hi, my name is Molly Kinder from New America. I first just wanted to say this is such an exciting announcement. There's so many thoughtful aspects to the program, and I really want to commend Walmart for partnering with Lumina on an evaluation, because the whole community is going to learn a lot from your experience, so thank you for that. Rachel, you made a really good point about the opportunity cost of studying. And I'm wondering, particularly for the workforce that might have children, women, other commitments on their time, maybe a second job, how are you thinking about the non-tuition costs of studying and those opportunity costs, and particularly for women?
Sure. So we talk to our students about this every week. We find that some of the opportunity costs that get most in the way are, one, transportation for everyone. Someone mentioned last night when we were discussing this program, there are many Americans who live closer to a Walmart than they do to a college.
Yeah, 90% of America is within 10 miles of a Walmart.
And that's certainly not true of colleges in the US. So by offering online programs, one, you unlock the potential. Two, competency-based programs, which there are options here in this portfolio that Walmart's designed, enable people to choose when they study. And so a large plurality of Guild students are single moms, and that's the case in nearly every company we work at. And with the single mom, what we often find is the sweet spot of when they do their homework and when our coaches get the most text messages, emails, phone calls, is after the kids go to bed. And so creating programs where working moms can log in after putting their kids to bed to move through their coursework and to not have to adjust their work schedule and their family economic stability in order to go back to school is transformational. And so those are obvious things, but they're not obvious today for many of the folks wondering, how can I ever go back to college? And so we're excited to communicate that with Walmart and help single moms and many other folks figure out how to fit school into their busy life.
Yeah, I was going to say that post-bedtime study hour works for married moms too, with my kids.
And the online works if you have access to broadband, high-speed broadband digital access.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we remember, in terms of the opportunity costs, that there are still many individuals, particularly in rural areas, but also individuals who are living paycheck to paycheck, who don't have access to high-speed broadband. And so part of our work is to continue to figure out how we can make sure that individuals have the highest opportunity to succeed.
Yeah.
So if they're in an online program, how can we make sure that they have access to the internet so that they can do their homework and access their courses and aren't unintentionally disadvantaged?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, here in the front.
I'm Tati from Cool Moms Cool Tips, bilingual blog. And so my question for you is, I noticed that my local Walmart has an academy. So how does the academy play into all this debt-free college education?
Yeah, so the academy is where we do in-person training. I think we have up to 200 locations now of academies around the country. They're regionally located, and in stores, associates come and they train within the facility. And so how it's going to be used for this program is more around the training that they do there. Well, then that will allow them to get credit for that training through this program. Not necessarily they'll be taking the classes at the academy, although it's something we were just having a conversation about is we do think that we have an opportunity to provide that internet access for this program for those that don't have it within our stores. Many of our stores have Wi-Fi today, all of our academies do. And so that's stuff that we're looking at, where that may be a forum for them to be able to do and get access. But right now it's really where they get the training and they would get credit for it outside of it.
We have time for one more question. In front.
Hi, I'm Melanie Mendez-Gonzalez. I am a content scientist, AKA blogger, at canmeanswhat.com.
Jobs of the future.
Yeah, that's what my question is about, actually. So I hear a lot of this program is towards a supply chain and business management, and we've already heard so much about how e-commerce is the jobs of the future. So are there already programs that will support associates who want to go into technology, or is that something that is maybe after this one?
Yeah, so we're offering the 3 areas of study now across the 3 universities. Those are the ones that we're partnered with and kind of our preferred, and that's the $1 a day program. we're looking at expanding those. We've looked at technical type degrees, some of them in the pipeline that Ellie and her team are working on. So we're going to add to that over time. This is just our starting point. And so we'll see what the most demand is. We've been looking at, we have a huge e-commerce team as well within Walmart, as well as many of our associates in our stores. And so it's something that we're considering. That being said, Guild provides partnerships with up to 80 universities where they can still get the coaching, they can still get that connection point. It's not part of our preferred network where we're going to cover tuition, but they can still go through the process and get a variety of degrees, every degree you can probably imagine. I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'd add one relevant fact. It's we get asked about coding programs all the time, and obviously have some. America needs another 1 million software developers. America needs another 50 million people managers. And so when we talk about the business degree and the design of those, they're learning about e-commerce. They're learning about how to do project management, process management, people management of e-commerce products. But they're also learning a skill set that we know is in vast demand, both at Walmart and in the economy writ large in the next 2 decades. So we thought a lot about that as we thought about program design.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, with that, please join me in thanking our panelists today. Thank you guys very much for the insights. Appreciate it. And thank all of you for joining us. We hope you have a great day and a great week here in Northwest Arkansas. Thanks.